What is up, everybody? This inclement weather has got me with a little bit more time on my hands and inside. I can't be out there working on the plants. It's so muddy. So I wanted to use this opportunity to start a video series that I've had in my mind kicking around for a while. And I just wanted to talk about my kind of farms. That's what these videos are going to be, my kind of farm. And in each video, I'm just going to go over a small concept of what I would like to have at the farm that I'm eventually going to get. So hopefully these videos are going to help me share these ideas with people and also show people the whole vision that I have in my mind, because a lot of times people ask me, oh, what do you mean you want to start a farm? And it's like, check out these videos. This will just be the explainer. So the first video we're going to talk about is regenerative. And that's the kind of farm that I'd be looking to start. I'm going to explain a little bit about that. We're not going to get into the weeds and the nitty gritty of what regenerative organic is, but we're just going to talk about some of these concepts that will be applied to the farm on a macro level and why I think it's beneficial and that more people should be doing this. We should be incentivizing this kind of farming instead of monocrop conventional agriculture, which is where you use chemicals and sprays. So things to look out for are no-till and low-till methods. Those are going to be good, and that's usually going to be helping to improve the soil. That's one of the concepts of regenerative agriculture, is you want to be improving the soil, not constantly taking away from it. A lot of the way that they grow corn and soy in the Corn Belt over in Iowa and stuff is degrading the topsoil. And as we degrade the topsoil, it takes time to build it back up. So a lot of these farming practices where they're using chemical sprays for pesticides and herbicides and for fertilizers, and they're driving tractors and they're leaving the fields fallow for extended periods of time. That means an empty field. You're going to have more erosion, you're going to have dust bowls, you're going to have all these kinds of problems that could be avoided if people were just growing different varieties of crops and you didn't have huge expanses of fallow fields. And also all that tillage breaks up all the carbon that's stored in the soil, in the fungi, releases it into the atmosphere. So if you're an environmentalist, when you're looking at the CO2 release during the tillage time in the United States, it is crazy. Tons of CO2 is getting released from that as well. Unnecessarily, because you can have really good results using low or no-till methods. You can check out the No-Till Growers channel with Jesse. He's got a lot of great information on this. So I would definitely be doing a low and no-till. Masanobu Fukuoka, also the Japanese author who wrote One Straw Revolution, has spoken extensively about no-till methods for decades now. And they really can work to improve the soil so that you're leaving the next generation with more topsoil. It's like investing in the future of our civilization, is this regenerative farming. So I do think that's important. Not only does it improve the soil, but another really crucial resource besides soil nutrients is water. And water, what are we going to do? There's such a small amount of fresh water. We have to get more efficient, and that's just what it comes down to. And so by adding organic material to your soil, you improve its water storage capacity. This is really important to remember. So if you can get your soil up 1 percentage point in organic material, it's going to improve the amount of water that your soil can store by bounds. So if you have a big field and it's 3% organic matter versus a field that's 8% organic matter, that 8% field can hold way more water. So much. You could look it up. I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I believe it's like football fields of water extra, per acre. So we got to consider that we need to make these farming systems more efficient. So those are going to be two of the things that I'm going to be trying to do, is make sure I'm maximizing the fertility in the soil and trying to make it good with the amount of water that's being used by constantly adding organic material to the soil, leaving it mulched, cover crops. You don't want to leave fields fallow. So that's one of the dynamics that's going into this farm concept. So inputs and outputs is also really important. A lot of times in conventional agriculture, they're just trying to push the yield. How much can they yield? And so they can yield more if they give it more fertilizer sometimes. And so they can yield more if they do more labor on this process. And you do this, and you stick it up, and you do that, and you do that. And so a lot of the times, the way they're growing food is highly labor intensive. And then they get a huge yield. But it's taking away from the soil. It's not designed to grow plants in that way. Or it's just excessively laborious. So there are ways to set things up where they aren't that laborious. Consider this. If you had 100 acres of one type of apple, then you'd have nobody working for you for most of the year, barely. Just a little bit of maintenance. And then there'd be a time of the year where you had picking season. Now all of a sudden it's like, we need lots of workers because we have a ton of apples to pick. This isn't going to be fun labor. This is going to be barrels and barrels and barrels of apples. This isn't going to be like a kind of lackadaisical thing. This is like, pick some freaking apples. We're going to bring some people from other countries and we're going to pay them a substandard wage and we're going to get them to pick our food for us in this kind of like slavey way, because we have these giant monocrop farms that are designed for exporting food. They don't serve the community. And not only do they not serve food to the community, they don't employ the community. And that's really important to remember. If you're just growing one variety of crop, you won't have consistent employment for your farm and you'll need more workers when it's time to pick. Since these farmers don't have the staff, they actually resort to using picking companies. And so companies will drive different migrant laborers around. And I'm not trying to talk about immigration here, but just like, I think that the fact that people are abusing this labor pool is pretty sad, and it also doesn't help the communities. So people will get shuttled around to different areas. Oh, it's almond harvest, so we got to go up to Northern California. Oh, it's apple harvest, we got to go up to Washington. Oh, it's peach harvest, back down north, and they're just getting shuffled around. They're not really building the community. It's not really good for the community. So it's important to remember that a regenerative, biodynamic, and biodiverse farm is going to not only help feed the community around you, because you're not going to be exporting food that you're growing in that kind of diversity. You're going to be selling it to your local community through farmers markets, CSAs, or direct sale at the farm. And you're also going to be able to keep staff employed full-time, because you'll always have some work to do, because something's always going to be harvesting on a biodiverse farm. So by doing this, you can make sure that you're actually helping the community and to focus on the inputs and outputs, and make sure that you're not putting too many inputs in for the output you're getting. Like, is it a 1-to-1? Or are we putting so much more input here to only get a little bit more output? Are we applying 50% more fertilizer to get 10% more yield? Maybe that's not a good dynamic, and you want to look into that. Masanobu Fukuoka has a great example of this in regards to chickens. So there are larger varieties of chickens that are more prone to all sorts of problems, and you basically need to coddle them in order for them to survive. They're likely to have broken legs, they're likely to have bacterial infections, they need shelter, and they will lay you 1 egg a day though. So they're so productive. Oh my gosh, 1 egg per day, that's the most productive chicken. But it also takes a lot of coddling. So Fukuoka actually was breaking it down, like when he had the bantam chickens, they took way less work, they were way less prone to disease, they weren't prone to breaking legs, and they were actually able to multiply much more quickly. So even though you're not getting 1 egg per day per chicken, the input and output that you're actually getting more off the bantam chickens because they're less laborious. So using these concepts, regenerative farming is focusing on trying to make things easy and do nothing, do little. Fukuoka really talks about this expansively in One Straw Revolution. I can't recommend that book highly enough. So in regards to the whole regenerative thing, it's about being self-sufficient, right? Not getting your fertilizers externally, trying to create your fertility on the farm, right? So in regards to this, I think a farm is truly regenerative if they're integrating their energy as well. So I'd love to have solar panels set up, and if possible, a well on the property, so that I wasn't drawing from water from other sources and working with the water that I had available to me, and also so that I wasn't drawing energy from other sources, and the food was truly regenerative as it got to you. Maybe all it took was driving it to you, for instance, and that's the only distance that we'll travel. That's the only consumption that will have happened. So this is a less input, more output kind of scenario. Maybe there'll be more initial investment up front, and this is why I'm trying to put these videos out, so hopefully I can get some people on board that we need to work together to pool some resources so that we can invest in some land, put this infrastructure in place, and provide for these communities where there are so many people that just don't have access to fresh food all over the world, even in wealthy places. You'd be surprised. So some people don't like to grow their own seeds because they say it's laborious. Although if you do it correctly, it's not that laborious. There are certain seeds that are harder to save than others, but there's other seeds that you can definitely save year after year. So doing that cost analysis, that cost benefit analysis, and trying to figure out, which seeds can we save and provide for our community that grow really well locally here, and that we've gotten adjusted to our environment and our soil. Seeds will get naturalized if you're continuing to grow them in the same place, and they actually will get better and better at growing in that environment, because it's like their parents grew up there, the kids grew up there, the next generation, they're passing on all that genetic information for them to be better and better in that environment. So trying to produce as many seeds as we can on site for the farm would be something that I'd also be into. And because I think it's important for different people to save genetics. Just because somebody in Maine is saving all these genetics, it doesn't mean that they're naturalized to California anymore. Somebody also should be saving them in California. We should have multiple seed banks. And that's a little bit outside the concept of regenerative, but I do think it's important for society so that we don't lose this valuable genetic information. There is a documentary you could watch called Seed, The Untold Story, where they talk about how many varieties of fruits and vegetables that we've lost over the years due to our farming practices just getting more and more restricted and controlled by companies like the 4 big ag groups, Syngenta, Bayer Monsanto. There's 2 more. I'm losing them right now, but there's a Chinese company and there's 1 more of them. There's 4 seed companies. You don't want to be buying them. We want to be self-sufficient as a society where we don't have to rely on these monopolies. It's the same thing with the regenerative, locally grown farm. We don't want to have to be dependent on importing food from other places. What if those supply chains get interrupted like they did during COVID? We want to have farms locally in communities so that an area that has millions and millions of people isn't like hundreds of miles away from any locally grown food that could actually sustain the community. Just because you have a big farm here, it doesn't mean it could supply for this city if it's only growing a monocrop and shipping the food, exporting it. So there you go. That pretty much breaks down kind of like the regenerative, I'm having trouble, regenerative farming concept that I'm working on. I've got a lot more plans. I'm just trying to keep these in little bite-sized videos so it's not one crazy 3-hour montage, and then maybe I'll chop them up all together so that you get the whole shebang all at once. But that's the idea. Regenerative farm, serving the local community as much as possible, growing a diversity of things, keeping people employed year-round, focusing on the inputs and outputs, and trying to generate our own energy. All these things. And you can't be profitable doing that. I don't think it's going to make you a billionaire. I mean, I know it's not going to make you a billionaire, but you can be profitable running a farm this way. And there's all sorts of different ways to set it up. So hopefully as time evolves, I'm going to get some plan together so that people can invest in this. And this is just one little stepping stone on that path. Thanks for watching. If you're here, if you've got any ideas on what you think a regenerative farm should have, please put them in the comments. I'd love to engage and hear from you guys. If not, thanks for watching. Peace.